I wanted to get on here really quick to talk about how the media is being used as a tool to build divisiveness among good people on both sides. And it's exactly this kind of fear-mongering that leads to more violence and no resolution. And what's crazy to me is that we've seen this tactic used in the past and we're still allowing it to happen. Now you might be thinking, what is she talking about? So let's dive in. The New York Times published an article, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th. And the crazy part is that the sources were not only not verified, but it was co-authored by someone who had clear biases about the events that happened on October 7th. Now, if you're a Jewish person, or if you have relatives who are Holocaust survivors, or if you're just a good human who cares about people, reading that article made you sick to your stomach to hear about the rapes, the women, the babies, the lives lost. And what's crazy is that truthfully people trusted the New York Times because it's often seen as this beacon of this source of truth. And what we're learning more and more every day is that those claims were inflated. The Intercept, a media news company, did a deep dive. So if you want to learn more about it, feel free to check out that article. But one of the things that I found interesting is that they actually found a podcast where one of the co-authors details her extensive efforts to get confirmation from Israeli hospitals, crisis hotlines, sexual assault hotlines, and she wasn't able to. And I quote, "She was told there had been no complaints made of sexual assaults." To be clear, this video is not to question whether or not women were raped, people were raped on October 7th. It's actually the issue is whether the New York Times presented a solid evidence to support its claims that there were newly reported details establishing the attacks against women were not isolated events, but part of a broader pattern of gender-based violence on October 7th. Furthermore, saying that Hamas deliberately deployed sexual violence as a weapon of war. So I want to ask you something. I want you to think about it. Like, why would the New York Times, a credible news source, hire someone who has no journalistic background, who is a former IDF soldier, who has clear biases, to co-author this article? Why would they prey on a community's deepest fears? I think it's clear: to build divisiveness. And what's crazy is that history clearly repeats itself. Do we not remember Jim Crow? Do we not remember the extent that the KKK went to weaponize media? They literally told people that if Black people were free, their wives and their daughters would be brutally raped at the hands of Black savages. And they went as far as to convince white women to falsely accuse men of raping them. Did we forget about what happened to Emmett Till? The poor baby who literally lost his life because one woman lied on him? And do we forget the brave act of his mother? You know, when you lose someone, especially violently like that, that's why we have closed caskets. But Emmett Till's mother had to make a tough decision to showcase her baby's images to the world. Do you think she did it because she wanted to? No. She did it because she understood that the media would continue to push this narrative of the Black savage, the Black violence. What would happen if Black people were free? And by using her son as an example, it would wake people up to see where the real violence was coming from. And I think this is exactly why, in a world where social media is king, we also need to have media literacy. Now, I want to end this video with one thought. I want us to think about why are there articles of women, babies, people who are experiencing the same kind of violence on the other side? Why are their articles not as widespread? Do their lives matter less? I don't think so. And I think that, like, that's something we should really be thinking about. Does the other side's lives matter less? That articles about what's happening to them are not as widespread on the media as things that like this that were found to not even be true.